This podcast may contain adult themes.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only.
The views and opinions in this podcast are expressly our own.
When I get to the workplace, I like to fuck shit up.
Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
Hey, are you tired of toxic workplaces and the negativity that comes with them?
We hear you, and we're here to shake things up. Welcome to Let's Break Up Toxic Workplace Stories, the podcast that's all about breaking up with workplace toxicity.
I'm Nicola, and I'm here with my co-host Gina. Together, we're going to explore real-life experiences of workplace toxicity and offer a sense of encouragement and unity.
That's right. We're tackling the tough topic of negativity in the workplace.
So join us each week as we explore the various forms of toxicity in the workplace. We'll be interviewing guests to share their experiences and offer practical solutions for dealing with workplace toxicity.
Let's Break Up is quickly becoming the go-to source for anyone looking to share and then ditch the drama and help you break up with those toxic workplaces. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell all your friends.
In this week's episode. So in today's episode, we have got I want to say a part tour. So we had Kadzi B, who was our kind of Devil Wears Prada New York. And now
she was more like Sex in the City.
Yeah, Sex in the City. Oh, that's actually a really good point. Sex in the City. And now we've got Devil Wears Prada, the UK. And I'm really curious to hear how, the fashion industry in UK was equally as toxic as it was apparently in America too.
Well, Kadzi and I agreed. It's probably the most toxic industry to be in a big city, because it's very, supply and demand, and just everything being based on appearances. It's very cutthroat. Like, you have to fit the look of the brand, even if you're just like a designer. She talked about holding her seat, which some people,
that's a valid point.
Because it's like, even though they were being treated like shit, like an unspoken dress code or whatever, people would put up with it because that was like what you were supposed to do. It'll be interesting to see how Thalia, like, what her journey was like, because she wasn't a designer. She was more like an assistant or something. We'll learn more about the specific, but hers was more in the modeling end of things. She was at a modeling agency. So it'll be interesting to hear how it's different, but also the same as being on the other end of the fashion industry and being a designer or garment maker. So
hello.
Hi. Hello. Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good thing. I'm so glad we're not the only adults that wave like we're on a ship.
I know.
I wave all the time. I love waving. It's why I wave at everyone.
Is it your queen wave? Is it your British queen wave?
No, it is just like I'm a kid in a candy store. Like, hi.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about you. Tell us about you, Thalia. Tell us.
Give us a little background as to what you were doing right before you got into this toxic workplace, and then give us a little overview of what the toxic workplace was, like what industry. You can get as detailed or general as you feel you like.
Okay, sure. So before I went to my toxic workplace, I was actually at university. So it was quite like a few years ago now. So growing up, I never really had much ambition, never really had any goals, didn't really know what to do with my life, as I suppose any 18-year-old wouldn't know what to do. And fashion really interested me, so I kind of went to study fashion at university. I was there 3 years, and after university I kind of had to get a job, as you do. So going to the modeling agency was my first job. But actually, before that, I did have another internship that I was at for 3 months, unpaid, and it was with a fashion designer, and she was extremely toxic as well.
I've done a few internships way back in Manhattan with designers, and it was like so like belittling. They're like, staple these swatches to a piece of paper. And I'm like, okay, like use me for something better than this. Yeah, it was like stupid. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she got a group of us interns there under this false pretense that would learn more about fashion and more about fashion design and kind of assist her with like making of the clothes. And it did sound really fun, but it ended up being kind of like manual labor in a way, where she wasn't paying us, but we turned up just to paint her new studio, and we're painting her furniture and stuff. And she basically had us there like until 7 o'clock at night, and if we sat around having a lunch break, she'd come in and just yell at us, being like, why are my interns not doing anything?
Is she still a designer to this day?
She is actually still a designer. She's like an ethical designer as well. And I was like, why can't you just hire a design team to come in and do this rather than a bunch of fresh-faced people out of
famous
university?
now or just moderate?
I wouldn't say she was famous. She's more like a British-based designer. I think she's, she still dresses celebrities for the red carpet, as I've seen. So that was kind of actually my first introduction into the fashion industry. And I guess I should have known then the first red flag.
Out. Yeah.
So I kind of left after a couple of weeks, as I was like, this is not for me. Like, I'm not going to get yelled at, for free.
Yeah, for free. Yeah.
So then I looked for some other jobs, and I got an internship at a modeling agency in London, like a week afterwards. And I went in for the interview, and then that evening they kind of called me and said, can you start tomorrow? And I kind of remember it. My mum was away on holiday, and she was away for a week, and I was like, oh, I had this week just to kind of have the house to myself, just do nothing, just lay around the house. And then they called me and they're like, can you start tomorrow? I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And at the time I was basically living an hour and a half door to door from their office, so I had to wake up fresh face 6 a.m, go into work for the first day, and then it kind of just went on from there, really.
Okay, so what was your first red flag at the modeling agency?
I'd have to say there was probably a lot of red flags that I should have known then, but I think at the time it was kind of like normal for the fashion industry to kind of work for free, work from the bottom, kind of be everyone's be everyone's little bitch. So I did have to do the lunch run, and there was about four main bookers on the table, and it wasn't just like an easy go to one place and get everyone's lunch. It was literally like, I want to go here, I want this, I want to go here, you need to go here for me, can you get this for me? So I literally had to like dot my way around the area. So it would take me over an hour to get lunch, and after 20 minutes my boss would call being like, where are you? I'm starving, where's my food? I'm gonna eat the dog. And I was like, I'm doing the best I can, as a joke, obviously, would actually eat the dog, but I was literally trying to do the best I could, so like running around, and then I'd get back and they'd be like, my food's cold, you got me the wrong order. And it was just like kind of started from there, just like the stress. So I mean, yeah, red flag there, I guess, but that, I guess it was a normal thing, just kind of doing all the lunch runs, doing the tea runs, kind of running around. It was only, I think, after I'd been there for the internship for 3 months, I stayed on in a paid position as a junior booker. And I think it's when you're there for like a few months and you kind of see the cracks between the other bookers, and there was more and more arguments were started, like between my boss and the other bookers. I'd get asked to leave, kind of just to go out so he could have an argument with them.
What would they be arguing about? Like, so what can you possibly argue about? You're booking like beautiful people to like do model shoots. Like, what is it that you're possibly arguing about?
I mean, I wish I knew back then. It's one of those things where I think you're like kept out, like so out of the loop kind of thing, and you don't really know what's happening behind the scenes until you're there.
You're behind the scenes.
Yeah, like I'm behind the scenes. Yeah. And then after I've been there for a while and people started leaving, like you kind of see where the cracks are. But at that time, I kind of just I just needed a job. I wanted to work. When I first arrived, I probably spent 2 years the first 2 years crying in the bathroom because I was just getting yelled at as well.
For
and
what?
then obviously
What were you doing that was so wrong? Like you're looking at pretty
Breathing. She was
people.
breathing.
I was breathing. It's just like when you work in such a fast-paced, stressful environment, like anything, little thing will set someone off. So I would do like something, and I was young. I was 21, 22. I was still learning. I don't really think that I had someone, there was no process in place, basically. I kind of had to go in and learn the ropes myself. So if I did do something wrong, I would get yelled at, or if something was a model's fault, of course you would still get yelled at because you're in charge of that model. So yeah, they found something to yell at me about. So yeah, probably the first 2 years I was crying in the bathroom. And I was like,
Oh
no,
my God. And
and
you
you just
stayed.
convince yourself. Yeah, because you kind of convince yourself this is normal. The other bookers who were there were like, oh, this happened to me as well. Like, you'll get through it, you'll get past it. It always happens when you're new, but you'll just get used to it. Don't take it personally, which is probably like my favorite quote of all time. Don't take it personally, right?
That's Gina's favorite quote. And I feel like in this instance,
no, I believe that still, even in your instance, it is true, because they're reacting to something that they probably fucked up and they're just taking it out on you. So it really isn't personal. Like, they might be like aiming it at you, but it's probably not really about you.
Maybe in that situation, you kind of, when you get yelled at so often, you're kind of like, oh, maybe
no, it's a very heady concept to like get to understand fully, but once you really do, it's like, and at 21 I wouldn't expect anyone to understand that. I only at 43, like, I probably just started figuring it out at like 40 what that really meant. So you wouldn't have known. Like, you probably would have been like, how could it not possibly be personal? They're yelling at me. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, I think that was the thing, because I was so young. I kind of did, like, it was my first job, as my first proper job that I was getting paid for as well. So it's kind of like, I also wanted to impress them, because I didn't want to get fired, I didn't want to get let go. And there was other interns would come in and then they wouldn't be asked to stay on, and it was kind of like, I felt like I was in a position like, oh, I'm obviously doing a good job, they like me because they asked me to stay on, so I don't want to F up in a way, and I don't want to lose this position because I'm doing a good job. So I think it's also more of like a self-worth thing. Definitely back then anyway. I've sorted out all my issues since then. But I think that was it for me. So, like, back in the day, I was always a huge people pleaser. I wanted to please people, and if I didn't please people, I did take it out on myself, being like, well, this is me, I fucked up, this is what I've done wrong. So that's definitely the way I looked at it, that it was kind of punishment for me. So yeah, so I was there as an intern for 3 months, and then I stayed on, and I ended up being there in total for 6 years. And slowly I worked my way up from like assistant to the booker, I guess I was, to a junior booker, and then a senior booker. And I kind of managed to, what do you call it, not upgrade your job, get a promotion. But it wasn't really a promotion. It wasn't
upgrade.
Really,
well, I leveled up. I leveled up.
I leveled up in that job. It wasn't really a promotion though, because people above me would leave, walk out in really dramatic ways, and just never come back.
Wait, can you tell us one story that was super dramatic of someone leaving?
I guess there would just be like blowouts all the time between my boss and the other bookers, and they would just have screaming matches
on the spot.
And quit on the spot. So I would say, actually, red flag, I've probably like listed so many red flags, but red flag number 2 was when I first started working there was no contracts in place. And the other bookers didn't have any contracts either. So obviously there was no there was no rule in place of how much notice you needed to give. So a lot of people did just like storm out and everything, because they could, and there would be a booker down and be panicking, like, what are we going to do now? So yeah, that happened quite a few times, and then I just worked my way up, and yeah.
So when you were at like the top of your game there, were you making good money?
So again, that was another thing. I was making good money, I think, for my age, probably not to live in London. I mean, as soon as I got my paycheck, I was like, oh, this is great. And then I would just, I had no financial boundaries back in the day. So I would literally just go and spend it. But it was enough for me to move out of my mum's house after about a year and a half and move into central London. Not like central, like where Buckingham Palace is, the royal family, but
you moved into Buckingham Palace.
You are actually Meghan Markle.
Yes. This is what Meghan Markle actually looks like
when she takes her mask off.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that was Prince Harry. Like, we just, I had no idea it was him.
You imagine like trying to squat at Buckingham Palace, because that's essentially what you'd be doing. Oh my god. Literally. Okay, anyway. So now you're not an hour and a half away anymore. That's the point of that. Okay.
Yeah, that's the point of that story. Yeah, more like London Underground, probably 45 minutes. Because that was the other thing when
That's not a great improvement.
It actually is. It's half your original. It went from an hour and a half to 45. She cut it in half. It's a good improvement.
And for London, it's good because I was basically in quite south, in Clapham Junction, if you've heard of it, maybe not. And then the modelling agency was kind of north near King's Cross. So yeah, it was actually
I know where King's Cross is. It's one of the train stations on my Monopoly board.
There you go. So it was actually a big improvement. But
also the Pet Shop Boys have a song about King's Cross. I'm dating myself.
Before my time.
Yeah. You should pick up the cassette tape of the Pet Shop Boys. They're amazing.
Use your pen to wind the cassette tape up.
Yes.
I've got so many
you should stream them.
Already.
They're amazing. They're like, like I feel like London has so much good music that came out of there like back in the day. I don't know what's going on right now.
You know what? They've got Harry Styles. That's not shit.
It's not good either, though, is it?
Although, okay, so I went to London once. I was probably all of 7 and went to Harrods, and my mind was just like, oh, look at all the toys. That's all I remember. It was also the first time I had McDonald's because we didn't have McDonald's in South Africa yet.
Okay, Harrods is it's
Harrods
cool.
is nuts.
And Hamleys as well. It's amazing for toys.
Okay, so you're now living in London instead of outside. Your commute is you cut it in half, 45 minutes. And every day you go to, like, what do you feel like when you're getting into the office? Are you like, oh, fuck, another day of this?
Okay, yeah. So actually, before I talk about that, there was another red flag as well when I first started working there. So it was one of those things where it was like you were at work at 9:30 and the ending hour was 6 o'clock, but obviously no one actually left at 6 o'clock, right? Even though you were just twiddling your thumbs, you couldn't basically leave until our boss got up off the table and then left. So, and he obviously never left on time.
For everyone.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like it's 6 o'clock, everyone's itching to go, you've got plans, but no one's going to get up and go, and you don't want to be the first one to go. But obviously when I first started, I was like, I have to go because I've got trains to catch. And if you know anything about trains in the UK, they're always delayed. And like the later you leave work, the later you're going to get home. It was literally an hour and a half back home. I would eat dinner, sleep, and then have to wake up again to then go back into work.
It's just like a washing machine.
It was literally like just constant. So it's like I needed to leave at 6, and every time I kind of got up, like the scrape of the chair, and everyone would just look over. I was like, I've got to go. And then it's just like that look of disapproval, just like, okay, kind of thing. It's just like, oh my god, I just feel horrendous for even like.
But even though you were
going
unpaid,
home. Yeah, at the beginning, exactly. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm unpaid at the minute. So it's like, I can't be expected to say, obviously when I did get paid, it was a different story, but I still had to kind of leave. So actually it did get better when I did move to London, because it meant that I could stay that longer time.
Did it get better or worse? Because this boundary is like being pushed, right? Like looking back, it's like, it was better because
I'm sorry, what boundary? I'm not seeing any
there was zero boundaries.
Yeah, zero boundaries. Yeah.
All I'm seeing is just like a field where we could hop from one side of the field to the other side of the field. There's no fence.
And just do whatever the hell you want in between. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I think, yeah, like I said, I was a people pleaser. So it's kind of like, well, if I move, then I can show that I am serious about this job. I'm going to stay later. So yeah, but then the boundaries did then get pushed even more, because when my boss knew that I did live closer in London, he would then call me up at all hours of the night, be like, oh, I'm on my way back to Heathrow, call me a taxi. Or sometimes he would leave his keys in the office. So he would call it, like, I'd need to get a taxi to come and pick my keys up to go and take them to him. So it was
the
a lot of
taxi
like,
ever reimbursed, or was?
yeah, I mean, after a while. So it was, I think in the end I put the company card on the taxi company I used, so that it wasn't coming out of my bank account.
Right.
But so there was a lot of that as well, kind of like zero boundaries again. And the other thing with models as well, it is the 24-hour job. You always have to be on call, just in case like someone's wanted for a last minute shoot, or a model doesn't turn up for a shoot. It's literally like constant. It's the amount of times that my weekends were taken up, because I would organize photo shoots for the models at the weekends for them to get pictures for their portfolio. And like the models sometimes would just never turn up for the shoot. So I'd have the photographer on the phone, like yelling at me, being like, where's your damn model? I'd have my boss on the phone yelling at me, because they would be calling the agency, being like, why is this all fucked up? And then I'll be trying to get the model on the phone, because they've gone out the night before, got really drunk and not picking up, like hungover in bed, and they're not picking up. So I'd literally like take out days of my whole entire weekend, trying to get hold of a new model, trying to be like, are you available to go now if the photographer likes them? So it was stuff like that. And I still, to this day, kind of like, I can't keep my phone on loud anymore. It's always on silent. I can't even have the vibrate on, because if the phone rings or if it vibrates, I kind of go back to that triggering state where I'm literally like, oh my God, it's my boss or someone's calling me to figure this out, and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, I feel like it's constantly traumatized me.
I'm sure it did. I'm sure it did,
Yeah.
because it's like all hell breaking loose, like every other day.
Literally, yeah. Like there was always just something going on, and obviously during then the fashion weeks as well, you'd be required to stay in the office until like 3-4 a.m., go home, and then go back in again at 9:30 in the morning and stay there again until 3-4 a.m. because I don't know why, but fashion designers or casting directors take so long to choose who they want to be in the show. So you're basically just waiting for them to decide. So yeah, it was kind of, it was very long days. You have to kind of do that for a whole week break. And because there was only, it was a small agency. It wasn't a big agency. It was a very boutique agency. It was just, I think it was maybe like 7 or 6 years old when I first started. So we didn't really have like a big staff there. So especially when people left and I moved up the ranks, it was kind of like me and someone else were at the top. And then there was like 2 or others, junior bookers, who again were on the conveyor belt of like leaving and coming in and leaving. So it was everything, all the responsibilities were kind of up to us. So we had to be there every day to kind of manage this agency. Especially my boss, he then opened an agency over in America. So he spent a lot of time over there as well. And I know earlier you asked about my salary, and I said it was enough at the time to live off. But when you then start getting more and more responsibilities, and you're not just a model booker, you're also like a kind of like a parent for these models, like chaperoning them around and helping them get from A to B. And you're also then a PA for your boss as well. It kind of like, well, my salary does not reflect everything that I'm doing. I'm basically 5 different people all at once. So yeah,
look,
that
we circle back to quiet hiring, Gina.
Yes, I hate those stupid buzzwords. Quiet hiring, quiet
quitting. Yeah.
Can we start a new buzzword? Quiet firing.
That's already a thing.
Is it? How do you quiet fire someone?
Describes how managers fail to adequately provide coaching, support, and career development to an employee, which results in pushing the employee out of the organization. At the very least, it tarnishes your employer's reputation as a good place to work and poisons team trust, and even hurt your ability to keep customers happy when key employees exit.
Are they describing where we came from? Was that like an inside article about where we met? I feel like it really is. We just have to add like also could be a cult, and then it would be perfect.
Can we just pause here for a second and remind people that if this podcast is something you enjoy, we would love to hear from you.
You can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Let's Break Up Toxic Workplace Stories.
Sharing and subscribing really helps us feel validated.
Okay, so Thalia, what made you leave this position finally?
Yeah, what made you leave this fantastic opportunity?
Were you quiet fired?
I was not actually quiet fired. They didn't want me to leave. So basically, I was there for 6 years. I know you asked how I felt when I did go into work. And it was one of those things where I kind of sold my soul to the job. I wasn't the person that I was when I started to how I left. I was always quite quirky, very awkward, very, just weird, but fun. Like I was a very fun person. And when I was working there, it was everyone, the bookers are cool, the models are cool. And you kind of compare, like my comparison probably started there, but I just didn't realize it. And you start comparing yourself to everyone else, like to the models and what they're dressing like and to the other bookers. And I basically started to replicate what they were wearing. I kind of lost who I was as a person while I was there, because at the same time I was a very sensitive child. I was very emotional and I would cry all the time at school, even if someone just looked at me. I was kind of like that child. I don't know why I was. I just had, I don't know, I was very in touch with my emotions. I guess it's kind of the trend now, but back in the 90s, noughties, it wasn't. So when I started working now, I was still quite emotional. And then obviously I was broken down to the point where nothing really I just wasn't bothered by anything anymore. So I'd been there 5 years and people would yell at me. I'd be like, I don't care. It kind of became like that. Like I lost passion for the job. I lost respect for a lot of people who worked there. And it kind of just went on like that for a while. And then I lost myself. I started to become like a huge bitch to people. I had,
like how much of a huge bitch? Like, did you just like lose the shit? Like, did you just
zero level bitch?
Come off?
Yeah. What happened? Give us your definition by an anecdotal story of how you became a huge bitch.
Can we get friend references at this point?
Yeah, because like your level of bitch, I have a feeling is like nowhere near my level of bitch.
Probably not, I don't know. And so obviously because I was yelled at as an intern, you kind of like, you then morph into the people who are higher than you, right?
Acceptable.
So then, yeah, exactly, because it's just normalized so much in the fashion industry. Everyone's yelling at each other. And then because you're losing so much patience, it's a very high pressured, stressful job. And if someone below you does make a mistake, you do just yell at them, because it's just like how, I talked you through this and you still messed it up. So you kind of do then take your frustrations out on them. Whereas really looking back, it's like, well, maybe it was my fault because I didn't explain it very well. So it's stuff like that. I think it's what you said earlier about the whole don't take it personally. It's like people are yelling at someone else for their own fuck up, but they just, you can't admit that to yourself and you don't really see it then. So I guess in a way I became a bitch in that way. I was a bitch when I went out, especially when I was drinking and partying, just like pushing people kind of thing. I mean, I was never violent, but if someone kind of got in my way, when girls dance, they like really get up in your space. So I just kind of like push them away. And so I kind of got like pushing matches and stuff. I just lost so much patience, especially with slow people on the street. So I kind of would like move.
Did you punch people in the back of the head?
No.
Oh my god,
no,
that's how I imagine. That's what I imagine doing to slow people, because I'm really tall, so I walk at pace.
It's so frustrating.
I always said a cattle. All we need in New York is a good cattle prod. Move people, just kind of herd people.
Yeah. I mean, I think they should have on the pavement a slow lane and a fast lane. If you're slow, just move to the side. And
the problem there is that people. It takes a very interesting type of person who can reflect enough and actually say, I am slow. Because most people think like, oh, I'm walking so fucking fast. What the fuck these people want? And then it's like, and of course, tourists in New York, they're everywhere. And you're just like, oh my God, please, I have to get to work. Like, you're in my way. I've actually shouted move before, like to people.
Yeah,
I'd be like, move. Or like if people are standing at like the top of a stairwell to like the subway, I'll be like, that's a smart place to stand, like really loud.
I went to the movies the other night with my son, and there was this group of kids sitting in front of us. The movie house was fucking empty. There was maybe a total of 10 people in the movie house, like total.
Loser.
And thanks. And so there was this group of kids in front of us, and they were just like fucking talking the whole way through. And I was like, excuse me, shush. And the little girl turns around. She's like, did that lady just tell us to shush? I'm like, yes, I did. With me.
But that's okay. I took my daughter to like the state fair or whatever, because now I live in like some annoying place in Florida. It's very much like the country for me, even though it's not technically a country, like the country. And I had to go on a ride with her because she was just at like the height limit, and there was like these two kids, and they were like hanging their heads out the window, and the girl was saying to the little boy, you're gonna die. I think his name was Aaron or Ethan or something, and I was like, yeah, Ethan, you're gonna fucking die, because they were so loud. And then they were just like I scared the shit out of them, but they were really annoying.
I'm loving this.
I was not there for it. And then
kids
to make you feel better, to make you feel better, the other day at the gym, I was looking for 15-pound dumbbells, and I found them like in the corner. Nicola already knows this story. And I go to pick them up, and this guy comes over, and he's like, no, I'm using them. And I said, oh, that's such a lightweight for a man. And I walked away.
Like an American bitch is probably very different to a British bitch, because
Or
you guys just go for it.
Bitch.
But I guess, yeah, in answer to your original question, I mean, for me, like how I was at university to how I was in the job, I did like bump up a level of bitch level.
Yeah.
For me, and it kind of got to the point where I didn't even like myself. I didn't like the person that I had become. And obviously I didn't deal with my stress or this toxic workplace in a healthy way. I did just go out every night and escape through alcohol. I partied a lot. Even if I didn't party, if I went home, I had to have a bottle of wine with me, or like a little, we call them tinnies in the UK, and they're basically like gin and tonic in a tin. So I'd go and buy them, and it was kind of like, it was just normal for me to go home every night and have a drink to calm down from the day. I would just like mindlessly watch TV at the weekends, like not really do anything. I'd be hungover. And I also, emotional eating was another big thing for me as well. I would just eat my feelings. So I'd be ordering Domino's every weekend, and I'm like, this is going to make me feel better. But obviously,
delicious.
Yeah, I don't, it does, but I haven't had it for ages. But it was like, it's kind of like everything I kind of did, it was for instant gratification to make me feel better in the moment. I wasn't actually solving the issues deep down. And so I kind of went on like this for like 2 or 3 years of kind of just escaping through alcohol, partying. There was some drug taking there as well, and it just kind of got to the point when I was 27, where I was just not excited to go to work. I mean, was I ever excited? I always, it's like the Sunday scaries. It's the Sunday scaries, isn't it? Where after a weekend, you're just not looking forward to going into the office. For me, it was literally every day was a scary. It was literally like, I really just don't want to go in.
The Monday through Sunday scaries for you.
Exactly. And even, because even at the weekend, I still possibly have to work. So it kind of just got too much for me in the end, and I would just go to work and I would just be super depressed, groggy. I would start fights with people because I just wasn't in the mood anymore, and I kind of just lost the excitement for life. And I think it got to the point, like I had a couple of panic attacks just during the day, like kind of, there was one, like my anxiety got really bad. Like I was going to a birthday party, not birthday party, but yeah, I know that sounds like really childish and young, but it was a birthday party with a friend. And she kind of went into the party, and like something was just holding me back and stopping me from going in. And I was like, I can't face these people. Like, I had so much anxiety at the time. I was like, how, do you know what I mean? It was like, I just couldn't walk in. So I literally ran away and went home, and she'd call me and like, where have you gone? I was like, I just had to come home. And it was stuff like that. I was like, this can't be normal. Like, I used to be so sociable, meeting new people, but now like I cringe at the idea of meeting new people. And especially when in London as well, I think a lot of my friends, they were bankers, they worked in investment, hedge funds, I guess. I mean, I don't really know. They were very like professional, and they would ask me what I did, and I say I was a model agent, and they'd be like, so what do you do? Just give out directions all day? And it was kind of like, you know, you kind of want to sit there and be like, well, no, I do visas for people, I'm a PA for my boss, like I'm doing this, I'm constantly on the phone, like I get yelled, like, you know, kind of give them the whole task list of what you do, but you don't really have the effort when you're out drinking. So you're just like, yeah, basically. So it was kind of like a thing, like I couldn't even feel like I could talk about my job without it being, you know, without feeling
Like,
embarrassed as well, kind of thing.
it sounds like
Which
you
was
just
bad.
it sounds, honestly, in a word, it sounds like you were demoralized.
Yes. That's a great word. Thank you for that.
Because it's like you were getting it
Super
from every
valid.
angle. Like, you were getting it
Yeah.
at work, you were overworked, you weren't taking care of yourself, you were drinking too much, you were emotional. I don't know if it was binge eating, but you were emotionally eating, which is never good, because then the guilt that comes after that is like massive, and like it just perpetuates the cycle. So it sounds like, and then like you go out, you try to talk to someone, and people demean your job without meaning to. They don't know that they are, but it's like, this is what's putting food on my table. This is what's putting the Dominoes in my mouth at 3 a.m.
That's literally exactly what it was like.
So
This is what's fueling my alcohol.
Yeah. So don't fucking like demean my position. I mean, like, it would be the equivalent if someone said to like a finance guy, oh, so you move numbers around on a computer screen. Cool. Which is essentially what they do. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Then I think it was that I was just demoralized in a way, and I wasn't really looked on as, you know, just as what's the word? Yeah, just like as an intelligent person. I think I was
like,
also,
you weren't valued in any
I
area
wasn't
of your
valued.
life.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just not valued as well. And so I think eventually that all just got to me, and I hit rock bottom in the end. And I was like, I just can't carry on. Like, this is not what I want to be doing for the next 40 odd years. Like, there's got to be more to life than this.
There's gotta be more to life.
Because there's always
No, okay, just me then.
No. So what did your rock bottom look like?
I mean, rock bottom, like I just described, it was literally partying all the time, just kind of like going out for the sake of it in a way. A lot of my friends started seeing people, so they would always be busy and stuff, so it kind of got to the point where I'd literally just be like scraping at the barrel trying to find people to go out with me, because it's like I kind of have
I've had those moments. I can feel that.
Like I need to kind of blow off steam, like I need to go out, but obviously in the end it's like, well, yeah, the barrel's empty, so then obviously I just would drown my sorrows at home by myself with a bottle of wine, Netflix, and just kind of just stay there. A lot of anxiety as well, just very, I don't want, obviously I was never self-diagnosed. I was never diagnosed with obviously depression, but you know, when you're kind of like in that state, I had like very low moments, and I was like, you know, looking at this, there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. And I always had this idea of going traveling. So it just became this thing. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go and travel, this is what I'm gonna do. So I ended up booking a trip, and then I had to give him my notice because I was so high up. I was basically encouraged to give in a notice, even though everyone else just left. But it wasn't just like a 2-month notice, 2-week notice. I had to give 3 months notice just because I'd been there and my boss really liked me.
So I'm assuming contracts were somehow now in place.
No, so the contracts were still never in place. But like I said, like, yeah, I lost who I was as a person, but I still didn't want to piss them off because of my people pleasing
But
like
also, I mean,
ways.
there is something to be said about, not burning bridges with companies, because you
Yeah.
never know, like, where you might find other people.
Mhm.
Although I'm just thinking of my history, like some people, if I cross their paths, I will not entertain it.
Mhm.
But it's still good to leave on good terms if you are able to. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. And I think that was my reasoning then, because it's like I know I wanted to go away traveling, but at the time it was just going to be for 6 months. And so I kind of had this idea I was going to go traveling and then I'm going to be fixed and then I'm going to come back and just like basically go back to my old life, live back in London and get a job again in the fashion industry. So it's like I did want to keep those connections strong and not burn any bridges, like you said. So I think that's why I then ended up doing it, because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I ended up giving my 3 months notice, and then those 3 months were probably like the worst 3 months of the whole 6 years, because everyone knew that I was leaving, and it kind of just became like this really awkward thing. Like no one would really talk to me about it. Like it's very hard, like with modeling agencies. Once you're in the modeling agency as a booker, you barely leave. You kind of switch modeling agency to modeling agency, but you don't really, or you go into casting directing kind of thing. You don't really remove yourself from that and go on a separate path. And so I think when I was there, it was kind of this thing. Everyone was like, I said I was going to go traveling. I'm not going to go find another job in a modeling agency.
And
I'm
they're
going
like, what's
traveling.
wrong with you? Yeah.
They literally like, what's wrong with you? You're 27. Like, aren't you past that? And it was kind of like listening to, so they didn't really talk about it. They never once asked me about where I was going on my trip, these are the people like I knew for so long. I worked with them every day.
And you're spending the majority of your time with them.
Exactly, yeah. And
also overtime with them as well, because it's not just 9 to 5, it's like 9 to 3 a.m.
Yeah, exactly, like on the weekends. And one of the people that I did work with closely, I'd known them for 6 years, and I considered them a really good friend. But then when I kind of handed in my notice, I realized it was when I'd handed in my notice, I'd realized what we obviously aren't friends, because I felt just really betrayed in a way. We argued all the time. I kind of got I felt left out of things. There would be scouting trips where you basically go to festivals and concerts to kind of scout for new models, and I wouldn't be invited to them, even though I was the senior booker.
Yeah,
the junior bookers would go with the other senior booker. So it's kind of like, well, how am I not doing these things? They're like, well, it's because you're leaving. So I was started to be phased out a lot, which was hurtful as well. It was just like a really awkward workplace to turn up into, and that's when my scaries kind of became the worst. It was like, I really don't want to go in, I just kind of want to leave now. But I kept my word. I'm a loyal person. I'm not someone who is just going to turn my back on someone like that. So it's like my loyalty kept me going in every day for 3 months. And
good for
at
you,
the end of those 3 months, I left. I mean, I have to admit, like, even though it was a really toxic workplace, and the job itself was toxic, and like the people were toxic, like everything, the whole thing about it was toxic, I learned so much at that job. And it's not like I'm sitting here wanting to bash modeling agencies and stuff. Like, I've become I wouldn't say a better person, because I did become a better person, but my growth from the person I walked through into the door at the beginning of those 6 years to who I left, to who I am now, like I learned so much from that job. Absolutely. And so I'm thankful. I'm so grateful that I had even that experience at 21 to have that job, and then to work through and be there for so long and not get fired.
Oh, I hate you, Thalia. Like, why do you do this to me?
I had to, I'm sorry.
I know. It's a good one. It landed.
Yeah, I learned so much. And obviously I now run my own business, and I've taken a lot of how not to run a business from that into
that's exactly what
now.
I did with one of my toxic workplaces. I was like, well, right? I'm going to do the opposite of what she was doing, because she was horrible. Yeah.
So exactly. So I did definitely learn a lot, but it was just a relief to kind of just walk out of that door on that last day, and knowing that I never had to go back, even though they still did call me like a few days afterwards, be like, where's this? I'm like, and there was obviously a part of me that didn't want to pick up the phone, but
You
because I
shouldn't
was
have.
still,
You don't owe them anything.
I know, but
Zero.
it was 6 years, and I think I was just in that habit of picking up the phone to my boss and like thinking like, oh my god, I can't not pick up. I mean, even to this day I still have nightmares that he's calling me, or that I still even work there, and I wake up in this like fit of panic, like, oh my god, like, and I quit in 2017. So it's been
Holy
quite a
crap.
few years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a few years since I left, and I still have those nightmares. So it's kind of like a habitual thing. So I was in the habit of picking up the phone, so I did. But then obviously the longer I'd been gone, the
The
More
less it is,
infrequent
but
it became.
But it feels,
exactly,
it
yeah.
sounds like it just sounds exactly like it's PTSD,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
Just, yeah,
Wow.
trauma
So
from the
what
whole
is it
thing.
that you do now?
So I run my own health and wellness blog. So I am a blogger.
Nice.
And I'm
Awesome.
yeah, so I run that blog. I've been doing that now for over 2 years. And so I have got a nice audience as well. So I'm working on building more connections with them. And I'm also studying to become a health coach at the moment. So I can basically help serve them on a more deeper personal level. And I'm also a digital nomad as well. So I'm no longer based in London or the UK. I never, after that first trip that I took after I quit that job, I did go home, but then I went straight over to South America to to teach English as a second language. And I was in South America for a year. And then I came back just in time for the pandemic. Obviously, I didn't know I was coming back for the pandemic, but I went back to the UK, and the pandemic hit, and I was with my partner at the time, and I was actually supposed to go to Japan to then continue teaching English, but Japan completely closed off, so I couldn't go in March 2020. So instead, me and my partner decided to build a digital agency, all online, obviously. I don't know why I said that. A digital agency, so building websites and doing graphic design for people. But within and then again, talking about toxic workplaces, the hustle culture online is real. It's literally, so when I started my business for the first time, I was on social media looking like for direction, and everyone was like, working these 18-hour days. They were working all the way through the week. There was no time for rest. They were literally saying, if you hang out with your friends and they don't give you value, then that's just pointless and you're wasting your time. So then again, I was influenced in this job, and then I started to become influenced with this hustle culture, where I was like, well, if I just have like a day where I'm, just chilling around the house and watching TV, like I am lazy. So then that was like, again, I hit more burnout because I was just working these crazy hours. And I was like, well, I thought the whole point of building a business was the freedom, right? So that you can do what you want. So
But not in the beginning. In the beginning, because I also built my company, and I was working more hours than the first year and a half, I want to say.
Yeah.
So many hours. It's not even a joke. Yeah.
So it became, again, very intense. And also I realized that my partner's dream of building a digital agency then wasn't my dream. I'm not a very technical person, so building these websites, it just didn't really excite me. And so then I kind of did turn my focus into blogging. I started blogging about my experience with starting a business, and it kind of led into productivity tips while working from home because it was still the pandemic.
Right,
and then it kind of expanded into self-care, how to kind of incorporate self-care into your day, because it doesn't have to be a whole day. It could just be 10 minutes of self-care a day, just to kind of give yourself that little break. And then it's kind of morphed into more of a wellness health and wellness rounded blog. Long story short, it is great. And now obviously I no longer get the Sunday scaries. I wake up every morning kind of just looking forward to what I do, and I feel like I kind of have that purpose. Like a lot of the time, even though I had a job, a 9-to-5 job, and I kind of had that, like that structure, I still felt very lost within my life. I was like, well, is this what I'm going to be doing for the next 40 years? Or, because this doesn't excite me. So I'm happy that I have found something that I'm so passionate about that has kind of become my purpose. And yeah, it's really exciting. And I'm looking forward to where my brand my blog goes. Yeah, I've got a lot of it in the pipeline.
It has been just so delightful talking to you, because it's so clear how your transition has kind of happened. You know, you had this incredibly like awesome opportunity to work in an industry that at the time you thought was going to be amazing. It was not amazing. You learned really good lessons from that, and now you can identify things going forward. And now you've kind of carved out your own avenue and your own direction, which personally I hope serves you for the rest of eternity really well.
Yeah, no, it's been really great talking to you both as well, and just kind of getting like a lot off my chest as well, because I think a lot of that, like you said, PTSD, I think there's still so much pent up like anger in there still, like how I dealt with that for so long and didn't do anything about it. And obviously if I were to go back, I would do everything not everything differently, because I think toxic workplaces maybe are inevitable. I know that sounds a bit
no,
but I think
they're abundant. So I feel like everyone's gonna walk into one at some point in their life unknowingly.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think like even if a company does kind of focus on health and well-being, I think things can still turn sour in a way, because everyone's definition of health and wellness is going to be different. So I think even that can be toxic, like especially if you work at say Goop or something, and they get you to do these these juice diets all the time, like that is toxic, right? And that's a health and wellness company. So I think it's inevitable, and it's about just figuring out what optimum health and wellness looks like for you, and kind of just focusing on that and managing stress in a healthy way. Yeah, of course. I was also going to say I have a few tips as well.
I
just want to hear them.
Yes, we want tips.
Yeah, like just a few healthy tips, I think, for handling stress, because back, like I said, when I was in my toxic workplace, I didn't really handle it in a very healthy way. I did drink a lot, I did emotionally eat, and I did party, and they kind of, everything kind of just accumulated to my downfall. Even though, not that much of a downfall. So if I were to go back, obviously, I would just do things more in a healthy way. So I guess my number one tip is to build a morning routine that works for you. I know it's kind of like a buzzword at the minute on social media, but it doesn't obviously have to look like waking up at 5 a.m. and doing like a whole gym routine workout and then drinking a green juice and doing
Wahlberg
skincare routine.
He's like, I wake up at 3:30, I pray on like rosary beads, I kneel on them for like the ultimate mea culpa. Then I go work out like for 3 hours. Then I come back, pray more. Then I work out again for 2 hours. Like,
that just sounds like a full-time. Yeah, sounds like a full-time job in itself.
Yeah.
So I mean, this could just be like, wake up half an hour early and just do something that you enjoy, that brings you joy as well. So it could be reading, kind of just getting outside for some fresh air, or drinking a cup of coffee outside, kind of just having like a mindful moment for yourself. Because when I was working, I definitely didn't have a morning routine. I used to wake up with just like no time to spare. I would get up, rush, get ready, and then rush to the tube to get to work, and it was always delayed, so I'd literally be late all the time. And by the time I got to my desk, I had to skip breakfast, and I was already groggy myself. So that was my toxic trait as well, just kind of not leaving any time for myself in the morning. So a morning routine is just a really nice way to kind of de-stress you before the day is even begun, so you can navigate it more mindfully. And also, on your days off, do something more meaningful and worthwhile with your downtime. So instead of wasting the day maybe in bed dreading to go back into work after the weekend and watching TV mindlessly, kind of learn a new skill or a hobby, something that kind of makes you look forward to waking up in a way, like, oh, I'm going to do this today, rather than, I've got nothing to do today, so I'm just going to wallow in bed and think about work. So
that's amazing to wallow in bed. But yes, I also agree that doing meaningful things is a way to recharge your batteries.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is all rest in a way. Like even, you know, getting to, if you can, at least 7 hours of sleep a night. I know it's not always, you know, easy to get that, but it is kind of just, for me now, with my business, I mean, even back then I should have done it, but it's about scheduling in your non-work priorities first before you schedule in your work priorities, because when you are busy and you do have a jam-packed schedule, your self-care and your rest and like prioritizing yourself is the first thing to like get bugged down the end of the list, right? Because for some reason we still don't put ourselves first. So
Please, I don't even know who that is. What's even happening
Who
there?
am I?
Please.
So I think with a lot of what I talk about, it's like it doesn't have to be a whole day dedicated to self-care. It can literally just be like a quick 3-5 minute break to kind of recharge, in a way, like, you know, just have like a moment to yourself where you're just doing absolutely nothing. My favorite thing at the minute is people watching, because I find people extremely fascinating, especially.
But you're also in Thailand. People watching in Thailand is high quality
it's
people
amazing.
watching.
It's so good because it's like a different culture, and it's just like.
But thank you so much. Please tell everyone where they can find you, and we'll put it in the show notes and we'll link it. And if you are okay with it, if you have IG, we'll connect you on IG. And
so for more realistic wellness tips and self-care ideas, you can find me on Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok, all under @Notes by Thalia. For an insight into my own wellness journey and everything in between, head over to my blog, notesbythalia.com. And for a moment of calm straight to your inbox every Wednesday, you can sign up for my newsletter at notesbythalia.com/subscribe.
Thank you for joining us today. If you would like to share your story, we would love to hear from you.
Also, leaving a review helps us create more content because it shows us there's an interest in this topic.
For those of our listeners who do better with reading, we have closed caption available on YouTube.
See you next week, same time and same place.